Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris or Velo Sews on social media. Welcome back to Sew Organised Style Podcast. Stay listening.
Sew Organised Style Podcast acknowledges traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to the elders past, present and emerging.
Welcome back to Sew Organised Style Podcast. We're really pleased to meet and talk with Lindsie Rank of the Sew Busty Community. The Sew Busty Community is for anyone who is busty, anyone who has ever had to do a full bust adjustment. This is the community for you. So generally the content on Sew Busty Community is focused on those with a 3-inch or more greater difference between their full and high bust measurements. At Sew Busty Community, they firmly believe all bodies are good bodies, and they aim to be inclusive of all busty sewists. So, are you ready to hear from Lindsie, who spoke to me in May? Let's welcome Lindsie. Hi, Lindsie. Thanks for coming onto the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I know that you've been very busy, and I'm really pleased that you've given us your time today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be on the podcast with you today.
Can you tell us about your background and where we can find you on social media?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Lindsie. I live in the Philadelphia area in the United States, and I started sewing when I was a little girl with my mom, making Barbie clothes. And, just like everyone else or a lot of other people, I sort of continued sewing as a means of getting clothes that actually fit my body because I don't fall into the normal sizing that you would find in the stores. And you can find me on social media at Sew Busty on Instagram and on Facebook. I run a group called the Sew Busty Community, and that's so like SEW, of course.
And how do you spell busty?
Busty, B-U-S-T-Y.
Great. That's good to know. Are you a sewist, and how long have you sewn your own clothes for?
I am a sewist, and I've been sewing, it feels like my whole life. Like I don't remember I don't even remember learning how to sew. I think, I have memories of like sitting underneath my mom's sewing table while she was pedaling away. It was funny. I recently bought a new sewing machine, and when I was at the store, I was looking at a Husqvarna, which is what my mom sewed on growing up. And I saw the pedal, and it just like brought back a flood of memories. It's a very distinctive shape pedal. And I used to, stare at that pedal on the ground playing with my toys while my mom would sew. So I don't know, I started sewing really more seriously for myself, probably in like middle or high school, and sewed sort of on and off through college and graduate school. And I will say, like, I don't sew 100% of my wardrobe, but I definitely have started sewing more and more as I grow. I think I grow to appreciate my body more, and I become more and more interested in making sure that my clothes fit my body instead of trying to make my body fit my clothes. And that inspires me to sew more and more of my own wardrobe.
So you're getting a better eye for how your clothes fit you now than you did when you first started sewing.
Yeah, I think a better eye for it, but also a deeper appreciation for it. There was a time where like I understood that the clothes I bought at Forever 21 didn't fit my body perfectly, but I didn't care. Like, I guess I was more concerned about being able to go to the store with my friends and buy the latest fashions than I was about really treating my body the way that I should have been treating my body and dressing for myself instead of dressing for what the shops want to provide for me. And so I think it's just like, it's almost like a form of self-care at this point. Of like, I'm going to focus on having clothes that actually fit me correctly. And I don't think they have to fit perfectly. I'm not one of those sewists who will just do like a million muslins to get something perfect. But,
yeah,
I just think having it, especially at my bust, having there be room at the bust without having what I call the dreaded armpit wings from when your shoulders aren't fitting correctly because you have to have the room for the bust.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I said, I think it's just almost a form of self-care at this point.
So that leads us on to what you're doing with the Sew Busty Community.
Yeah, I started Sew Busty because just like when I shop at the store, when I shop for patterns, most patterns aren't made for busty people either. Most patterns are made for a B cup, and that's a B sewing cup. I always like to make this distinction. A bra B cup is generally a 2-inch difference between your full bust and your under bust. A garment sewing B cup is a 2-inch difference between your full bust and your high or upper bust. It's different. For me, I wear like a J cup in bras, but I'm only a double D or an F depending on the pattern in garment sewing. But most patterns are made for a B cup, and you can do a full bust adjustment and that's well and good, but sometimes that takes just a really long time. And sometimes you just want to have like a lazy Sunday, like sew up a nice shirt and wear it to work the next day. And there are companies that make patterns that are catered more toward busty sewists. So they have cup options built into the pattern, or they're drafted for a larger cup to begin with. And I knew of a few of them, but I felt like there probably were more out there that I just hadn't really come across. And I ended up making what we've called the Busty Pattern Database, which has a list of, I think it's at like 74, 73 pattern designers on it now that offer full bust options in some way. So either they draft for a larger cup, or they offer cup options, or some of them just offer like a full bust piece, especially for knits. So they won't do a bunch of different options, but they'll just offer one piece for people with larger busts. It's been really cool to see how many companies are offering that. And I've gotten to know even more pattern designers than I even realized were out there, which has been really cool.
It's good that you knew of some pattern companies that offered various sizes, but with the research in the database, over 73 companies, that's a lot of sewing pattern companies that haven't really marketed themselves well. And I think this is something that you're actually giving back to them for doing all that work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work for them. And I commend the companies that have done that, especially the ones that offer multiple cup options. Some of the entries on the database, for example, offer their larger size range for like a D cup. A lot of them will draft their larger sizes for a D cup, which is brilliant because it's absolutely crazy to me that any pattern companies draft their larger size range for a B cup, when the average boob having person is somewhere around a 34 to 36 double D.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to me that patterns in general are drafted for a B cup. It's not even the average, right? It's much smaller than the average. But when you get into larger sizes, that's even more true. About half probably of the designers on the database only offer the busty option in their larger size range, but that's still half of them who offer it in the full size range. So
yeah,
it's been really cool to see how many companies there really are out there that are offering these options.
It's almost like 73 companies that offer busty ranges, and it's even half of those give you the full range. That's really good for us as sewists to know that they're around, and it's great that you've pulled them all together in the database for us too.
I want to point out that it wasn't just me. I sort of spearheaded the database, but I crowdsourced it in some ways. So some of the entries came from members of the Curvy Sewing Collective. Some of the entries were some of my followers on Instagram. I had it open for anyone to edit for a while. I've now closed it off because someone deleted a bunch of it.
Oh,
no. That scared me. I'm sure it was an accident, but
yes.
After that happened, I was like, okay, I'm locking this down. And now there's a form. So if you have suggestions for additional companies, you can submit the form and then I will add it myself. But yeah, I just want to, point out that there were other people involved, and I'm really grateful to all those who helped out in compiling the database.
And so you said now there is a form. Does that mean that people can still contribute to the database?
Absolutely. So if you go to sewbusty.com, the database is there. And at the top of the database, there's a link that says, if you have additional suggestions, click here. And if you click that link, it takes you to a form where you can put in the designer's name and any additional information that you might have available to you about that designer.
That's a great service for us as sewists. And also it's a really good service for the pattern designers too.
Yeah, it's been a good collaborative relationship, I think, with a lot of the designers. A lot of them have been just as excited, I think, as the sewists that I've talked to. So everyone's benefiting.
What is the goal of Sew Busty?
The biggest goal for me is to provide a community, an inclusive space where busty people who enjoy sewing or who want to learn how to sew can come together and share in the frustrations and the tribulations and also the joys of being able to make clothing for themselves. I would say just like the number one goal is to just have that community. Then there's also goals that, I want to provide a space that people can feel inspired to make new projects and make clothes for themselves. I also want to encourage pattern designers to see that body inclusivity is really important. Size inclusivity is probably the most important part of that. Not probably, it is. I absolutely 100% believe that extending size ranges should be the number one priority for pattern designers, but that body inclusivity is not just size, that there's also aspects of it about where are the curves. Some people are busty. Some companies I've come across even offer different back sizes. So they'll offer a narrow back or a broad back option in their pattern. And I think that's the next step. Once pattern designers have added more extended size ranges so that everyone is included in their base size, I think adding those customizations so that is so important. Yeah, so I think those are the biggest goals, is just community and inspiration and letting pattern designers know that we're out here and that body inclusivity is really, really important.
One of the positives that comes out of all this work that you're doing is providing the learning opportunities for new sewists and existing sewists to be able to create clothing that fits your curves wherever they are. And in this case, we're talking about your chest.
Yeah, totally.
Where do you suggest a new sewing person starts when they're looking to make better fitting clothes?
Well, if they're brand new, I think the Sew Busty's Beginner Sewing Series is a great place to start. I've put that together. So this is a series that's on sewbusty.com, and it is specifically designed for someone who has never touched a sewing machine before. So I start with here are the tools you need. You need needles, you need thread. Sew along for the Lago tank from Itch to Stitch and the Saybrook tank from Cashmerette, which is sort of a first project in the beginner sewing series. That's a great place to start if you're just starting out. I think if you're someone who's a more experienced sewist, but maybe you're like me and for a long time you were just making patterns and to hell with it if they don't fit. Really? I think the Busty Pattern Database is a great place to look because, if you find a pattern on there that fits with your sewing cup size, then you don't even have to do a full bust adjustment. It's a way of getting a garment that's going to fit your body a lot better than any, B cup pattern would, without having to do a whole bunch of extra work and without having to learn how to do this whole adjustment, which is not the most simple adjustment to make. So those are the two places I'd say to start, is either the beginner sewing series or the Busty Pattern Database.
I know that in our community now we've got a lot of new sewists, so the resources that you're providing are going to be really useful for them to get from making a mask as being their first sewing experience through to making a top that fits them. So when it comes to the more experienced sewists, what's your advice there?
Someone who is up for a challenge?
Yeah, up for a challenge.
I think learning to do a full bust adjustment is definitely something that busty sewists should know how to do, because sometimes there is a really fabulous pattern that just doesn't come in your bust size. That happens to me all the time. I'm on a search right now for a wrap top, and I've been looking, and I have this whole database. So I've been looking at all these different pattern designers. I just launched Sew Busty's Pinterest, where I've actually pinned every single pattern from every single one of those designers and categorized them. So you can also look there if you're a more visual person. There's a whole tops section that's got 500 tops that have busty options. And there's no woven wrap top that comes in my bust size, in my double DF. So I'm going to have to do a full bust adjustment. Sometimes you just have to do a full bust adjustment. My favorite tutorials for full bust adjustments are on Cashmerette's website and also the Curvy Sewing Collective. I think they just have the best resource for that very step-by-step tutorial of how to do those on different types of patterns. Another challenge that I just did that I think everyone should try doing is to make yourself a bodice sloper. I tried 4 different bodice sloper drafting methods,
right,
and compared them, because just like with patterns, drafting methods do not assume that you have anything except a B cup for the most part. And even if they do assume you have more than a B, they usually top out at a D, right?
Right.
In their instructions on how to draft. So I did, like I said, 4 different drafting methods and compared them and ended up sort of doing a Frankenstein of 2 of them to end up with my bodice sloper. But now I've got this garment that fits me, this pattern that fits me perfectly, that now I can just change the style lines on. So I think that's another fun thing for someone who's more experienced and really wants to have clothing that fits their body perfectly or close to perfectly. I think a sloper is a great thing to try out.
So it sounds like Sew Busty is going to have information there for new sewists, sewing people who just want to find a pattern that suits their bust, and then possibly in the future how to go ahead and do your full bust adjustment and make a sloper.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be doing more on those things. I have a blog post actually for the Curvy Sewing Collective coming out on my experience in drafting my sloper. And once that comes out, I do plan to do a series on Sew Busty on using your sloper to make different patterns from there. So definitely I plan to have more stuff for experienced sewists on Sew Busty in the future. But I think, like you said, there's so many people in the sewing community right now who have like made masks. Maybe they've like tried to make a free t-shirt pattern that like didn't fit their body because it wasn't made for their curves. I wanted to start by focusing on getting those people started. But in the month of June, we're doing a bra month. So that'll be a great thing that really is for beginners and experienced sewists. We'll be doing a sew along with the Firebrand Jet Set bra, which is a great one for beginners because there's no fancy techniques in it. It's much like sewing a top. It's a wireless pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But we also are going to have some content from some bra makers talking about getting started making underwire bras. So if that's something that you're ready for that adventure, definitely check out the bra month that we're having on the Sew Busty blog.
It just sounds like a really good month to be there.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be fun. I think bras are my favorite thing to make. So I'm really, really excited about it. Sometimes I get to a point where I have too many bras and not enough like shirts. And I realize like, oh, like people don't even see this. This goes under my clothing. Maybe I should make some clothing for, work and not just tons and tons of bras.
That's being too practical.
True, right?
You have to be happy with yourself, and you're obviously happy with your body and making sure that clothes fit you well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What bra are you making next?
Next, I'm finishing up my Firebrand Jet Set bra right now, which I'm really excited for. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is make some tap pants to match it so I can feel all retro. I made an orange polka dot number, so I'm going to feel nice and retro in my vintage looking bra and my vintage looking tap pants. But the Eve pattern by Porcelain is my absolute bar none favorite bra. So it is unique in that every cup comes for every wire.
Oh, good.
So I'm a very narrow rooted person, which for those who don't make bras, that means that my breasts are very long and very skinny. So I like to say I have noodle boobs because they're like little pieces of macaroni.
But they still need a bra.
They still need a bra.
Don't knock them.
They're long and narrow. So because of that, like with most bra patterns, I have to do an adjustment so that I can use a smaller wire, but for my larger cup. But with the Porcelain Eve bra, I don't have to do that adjustment. It's already built into the pattern. And same thing with people who have what we call wide roots, which is where you're maybe not as projected, so your boobs don't stick out as far, but they're wider. Maybe they go into like your armpit area. And same thing with the Porcelain Eve bra has even the wider roots for the same volume cup. So I just think it's like the closest to a custom bra pattern that you're going to get without actually paying for a custom bra pattern. So that's my absolute go-to. And I'm sure I'm just going to make a million more of those.
I think I'm going to have to look that bra pattern up.
Oh, it's so good. And you can turn it into a sloper too. So she has instructions on her website on turning it into a bra sloper. So I've actually drafted totally different bras from my sloper based on the Porcelain Eve, which has been fun. Another fun challenge.
Yeah, another fun challenge. And making bras is a really good way of using small pieces of fabric that you had for a larger project. I think that's the other cute thing about it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Although the bigger your bust, the less true that becomes.
All right, I take that back.
I sometimes see people say that a lot, and I'm always like, I kind of have to buy fabric specifically for my bras. If I buy enough yardage, right, then I can use leftover fabric. But I think some people are able to use, very small scraps, and I am not one of those people, unfortunately.
I think I've just had a head slap moment. We're talking about Sew Busty, right? So why did I say that?
Well, it's true for a lot of people, though.
Okay. Lindsie, is there anything else you want to cover?
I just want people to feel like there's a community for them and to feel like empowered to be who they are and to be in the body that they're in, whatever that happens to be. Even if you're not busty, there's there's tons of communities out there that cater to different body types. And I think finding those people who look like you is so important. Of course, it's important to follow on social media people who don't look like you as well. But I think as far as body type goes, especially for those of us who are not your model figure that we see in, advertisements all the time, the like very skinny, small busted, or maybe moderately busted. I think it's just really important for us to see other people who look like we do wearing clothes, and you can go, oh my gosh, that person looks so good in that pattern. And like in your head, if you just saw the pattern, the picture on the pattern company website, you might think, oh, I would never look good in that. But once you start seeing other people who have sort of a similar figure to you, you feel inspired to be more confident about how you look. And I think even me, like coming into creating the Sew Busty community, I felt pretty good about myself, but I think I feel even better about myself now that I'm in this community and now that I'm like talking to people every day who have the same fit issues that I do. So I just want people to feel empowered to like find their people and make your clothes fit you. Don't make yourself fit the clothes.
Before we go, where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at Sew Busty. So that's SEWBUSTY. On Facebook, also at Sew Busty, or in the group, the Sew Busty Community. And also on Pinterest now,
yes,
at Sew Busty, and at sewbusty.com.
Lindsie, thank you so much for coming on to Sew Organised Style podcast and telling us about the Sew Busty community.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
And have a lovely day, listeners. This episode of Sew Organised Style podcast was produced by me, Maria Theoharis, with permission of Lindsie Rank, sound by bensound.com. You can subscribe to Sew Organised Style podcast, but with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps, and make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review. There are over 240 free podcasts available. Make sure you go back and listen to them. Post any questions or suggestions you have on our Instagram account at Sew Organised Style or on our website at www.seworganisedstylepodcast.com or on our Facebook page. We look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.